Yo, what's popping, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Vitamin C's, brought to you by CLNS Media. As usual, I'm your homie Adam Taylor, and as usual, I'm with my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Tim Sheils. What's popping, Tim?
Nothing much, just enjoying a nice, beautiful Monday morning. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's been pretty solid. As you all know, I got a tattoo over the weekend, so that was pretty good. Still recovering, but pretty solid. Other than that, I'm just looking forward to all of the new Celtic stuff we're going to be talking about, including Marcus Smart coming back. Robert Williams is doing 3-on-3 work, and we're going to touch upon an old friend of ours, Aaron Neesmith. But first,
Hit that like button, that subscribe button, leave a comment. Look, guys and girls, we are super, super close. I think there's like 82 more subscriptions until monetization.
mhm.
Ideally, I'd like that to happen this week. Realistically, if it could happen by the end of the month, that would be great. Just please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you are already subscribed, turn notifications on. You subscribe for a reason, so you might as well have the updates when we drop a new episode. Also, as another little update, I know that sometimes you don't have you can't be listening to us talk when you're driving because we're only on YouTube. Or if you're at the gym, you can't really be watching a YouTube video because you're trying to focus on your workout. So as of today, we're officially already launched on Spotify. In the next day or two, we'll be launched on Apple. Obviously, it's not a big deal. Like everybody with a podcast launches on these places, but we're there. So you can just go and find us there. Just search Vitamin C's with the apostrophe and you'll be good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, Tim, you're recovering from a tattoo. Mine's healed up about a few days back. So I know your pain. I'm down for another 8 hour sitting in a few weeks because you know how we do out here is no half measures.
Bless your heart.
Talking about a guy that doesn't play with half measures, I want to talk on Aaron Crash Neesmith, the dude that just genuinely didn't get enough opportunity in Boston. Like he had playing time, but it was inconsistent. Didn't really get a chance to find a rhythm, but shown, especially in Brad Stevens last season. So when Neesmith was a rookie, he did flash some two-way potential. Now he's out in Indiana, getting quite a consistent run off the bench. He's become quite a regular for them off the bench, and we're slowly starting to see flashes of what made him a lottery pick, right? Downside is those flashes aren't really coming from deep, but the other day he did have kind of like a career game-winning performance for the Pacers. Hit 5 of his threes, dropped some clutch free throws down the stretch. And I know that when I was speaking to you about this, you were like, man, if Neesmith pops all of a sudden and figures it out and becomes like valuable long term, does that change the way we view the Brogdon discussion and the Brogdon trade? And I thought this would be a really good topic we can hit on because my stance on that is no, it doesn't change a thing. And I have my reasoning, which we'll go into. But for you, if Neesmith became, I don't know, like a 6-man or a core two-way wing on a perennial playoff team, does that change the way you feel about the Brogdon trade?
My thought process, it's complicated, but I would say no. I don't think it does because I know what you have in Brogdon. My only thought process is you're losing someone who's going to be on your bench that's going to hit threes, but you have that in Sam Hauser now. I think the biggest issue that I have with that situation is it's always going to come down to health, and you sort of have that issue with Brogdon already, but Aaron Neesmith couldn't stay on the floor, and this is kind of a summation of what his career is, right? He has these small sample sizes of playing elite basketball. It's what turned him into a lottery pick. It's why he was so highly touted. It's why the Celtics drafted him. He had like less than 20 games before he broke his foot, I believe, in college, and that's where most of his value came from. Is everyone saw, wow, this like 20 game sample size, he looked amazing. He looked like a lottery pick. The Celtics took a swing on him, and he could never stay healthy, or when he was on the floor, he was inconsistent. And then we started to see those flashes, like you said, towards the end of the Brad Stevens coaching era. And for Ime Udoka era, he was not going to get any time. Ime was notoriously going to be playing veterans, and it took a long time for those rotations to really get hammered down. And they went out and they got Derek White, and it didn't surprise me at all that they went out and got Malcolm Brogdon. Rephrase that. It surprised me, but it didn't surprise me that they were willing to give up Aaron Neesmith to do so. And I don't think anyone else would have complained about that either. he wasn't going to crack the rotation here. That's the issue that I have. But there's always going to be this rhetoric and conversation about, look at all these guys that they're giving up. They gave up on Romeo Langford. And now you've got Spurs fans saying, oh, if Romeo could just stay on the court, everything would be great. Like, he would be so promising. And I'm wondering if we're going to be seeing the same thing out of Aaron Nesmith, or we're going to see him morph into what you wanted him to be that sharpshooter coming off the bench. But in terms of being a sixth man, that's what you got Brogdon for. And I think that's insane.
This is my point. So, my outlook on it is Nesmith was drafted onto a team that was looking to contend, and he was a ridiculously raw prospect, right? He needed legitimate amounts of playing time to ever develop. And when you're coming into a team and playing behind a Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum duo, and you're fighting for minutes with another lottery pick in Romeo Langford, and there's other wings coming in and out of the team, like via free agency, via like little trades that are happening, it's very difficult to find that consistency. And when you're raw, it's not like you can make an impact in the minutes that you're given, because you're still trying to figure things out. Going to a team like Indiana is going to give him time to develop and be able to play through those mistakes a little bit more. And that's what's going to allow him to grow. And when I say as a sixth man, it could be a seventh or eighth guy in the rotation. Not every lottery pick needs to turn into a superstar. Most teams would be happy if a 14th pick turns into a 10-year rotation guy. You drafted well. I don't care if Nesmith pops and becomes an all-star. I really don't. Like, good for him. Like, I'm not saying I don't care that he pops. What I'm saying is, from a Boston Celtics perspective, you were never going to be able to give him the minutes to develop. You were never going to be able to put him in a position to succeed. So trading him for Malcolm Brogdon, who was a genuine upgrade of what in a position of need, and who brought a skill set that was sorely missing during the NBA Finals, made far more sense to me than keeping a guy that you just don't have the minutes to give. So, no, I don't feel bad there. I want Nesmith to pop, because I want every person to succeed like that. If you're in the league, I want to see you do well. Because, none of us truly understand what it takes to get there, but most of us have a bit of an idea of the work and sacrifice that you're putting in. So, yeah, I hope you pop, man. But from the Celtics standpoint, 10 years' time, if the Brogdon trade takes you back to the finals, if the Brogdon trade is a precursor to a championship this year or next year, then you trade Aaron Nesmith 100 times out of 100 times, regardless of what he develops into, because Brogdon was more essential to your team building towards a championship than what Nesmith ever would have been.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I ever thought about was, I wonder if he would have gotten more run under Joe Mazzulla, just because I think we've seen Joe Mazzulla dip into their bench rotation pretty consistently. But in terms of what they've got on their bench now, a lot of those guys have proven, at least at certain levels, more than what you would have gotten out of Aaron Nesmith. I think there was a larger sample size for Sam Hauser. When he was in school, he was an amazing sharpshooter. And granted, we didn't really get to see a lot of him when Ime Udoka was coach, but the organization had faith in him. His teammates had nothing but glowing things to say, and he finally got that opportunity, and they put him into the right spot in the offense, and he's been phenomenal. For Luke Cornett, he fits a position of need. He's also been in the league a few years now. So, and he's been
around the league.
Around the league, in and around,
league adjacent.
Around, league adjacent. But he's fit a role now, and all of a sudden, the Celtics are utilizing him pretty well. And for a guy like Peyton Pritchard, he seems to me, I feel like Aaron Nesmith was, like you said, a raw prospect, but for Peyton Pritchard, he was kind of like a high floor guy. His ceiling as a player is limited only because he's, his physical limitations, that's not going to change, but he's a knockdown shooter, and he's consistently proved that. And he was a part of the rotation last year, and he's starting to work his way into the rotation this year. And it has proved his worth when Brogdon or Smart have been out. Again, also the same thing for Derek White, but I digress. The point being is, I don't think he would have gotten run here, even with Joe Mazzulla. You have to wonder, but it's like a hypothetical. Again, you have to take the proven thing. You don't just go ahead and just hope and wish that this guy's going to pan out here. If you've got a proven thing, you can go ahead and trade for it, then you do it. And again, 9 times out of 10, like you said, or 10 times out of 10, rather, you trade Aaron Nesmith to go out and get a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, because your rotations now at guard are ridiculous.
I mean, the other thing is as well, if Nesmith did stay and Mazzulla gave him time, then you don't get the season we're getting from Sam Hauser.
Yeah, bingo.
right? And as you said, these third year, fourth year guys that are coming out of college, your Grant Williams, your Peyton Pritchard, your Sam Hauser, they're always going to be more polished because they spent more time in the collegiate systems. So seeing Hauser, who ended, I think his last year in Virginia, he was 1% away from finishing with a 50, 40, 90. I remember speaking to him. You can find the interview on this channel somewhere. And I remember speaking to him as a rookie, and he was like, dude, I didn't even know I was that close until after the season had finished. And then I was just kind of like, man, just one free, I think it was like 2 or 3 free throws made that he'd missed. And he would have finished his final year in college with a 50, 40, 90. So the pedigree was there, right? Whereas Neesmith was always drafted on the upside that he brings, the small sample shooting size. And I always said that I felt he was more of a slasher and two-way threat as a defender than he was as a three-point shooter. Obviously, he hit 5, he hit 5 in a game for the Pacers the other day. If they can replicate that consistently, then there's going to be genuine value there, especially if he can defend as well. I want to move on from Neesmith now, but I do think that was a good discussion. I don't think it's going to be a topic for a lot of fans at the moment. I think by the end of the season, if Neesmith has a couple more clutch performances, stays healthy, shooting around that 40% mark, then this discussion may be, people might find this and be like, oh, people were hitting on this months ago. So I thought it would be really good to get in early on that one. The next thing I want to talk about is Robert Williams has moved up to 3-on-3 work in training. The return of the Time Lord. I don't really like that nickname. I prefer Lob Williams. I just like Rob. There are some really good nicknames in the NBA. I never thought Time Lord was one of them. If you want my instances, I like Beef Stew for Isaiah Stewart. I like Grand Theft Eldorado for Jose Alvarado. Because they're funny, right? Time Lord is just like whatever. But that return's coming close. So now we're about to start discussing, well, when he returns, how does that affect the rotation? How does that affect the offense? How does it affect the defense? Personally, I don't think the offense changes much. Rob's passing should allow him to play that 5-out system that we've seen the Celtics employ almost exclusively on offense, where there's no big man in the paint, everybody's around the perimeter. And then what you'll probably do is put him in the delay actions, which is where he's literally at the very top, they call it above the break, right at the apex of the perimeter. You put Rob there, you feed him the ball. You can play touch actions, it's where you just kick him the ball and then go get that quick handoff. Or you can ask him to, be a playmaker out of there, put him in the short roll, ask him to play out of there. And then just in pick and rolls, you've got that lob threat, you've got that vertical spacing, as the Celtics said last year. We just throw it in the end time to go get that shit. It's in the air, go grab it, go pull that down, go do what you're going to do. So I think he actually diversifies their offense. It gives them that above the rim threat that they haven't had this year. And that only increases what they can do offensively. Defensively, we've seen Mazzulla kind of shift back to that double big lineup, reinserting Grant Williams into the starting 5. I say reinserting like Grant was there in the first place, but reinserting a big is what I'm trying to get at. And that's just a precursor to, Horford will slide back down to the 4, Williams back, Rob into the 5, or they might keep Grant as the 4 and then move Horford to the bench, whatever it is. But I don't think it changes much for the rotation. I'm expecting that defense to take a significant leap. And just for reference sake, according to Cleaning the Glass, over the last 2 weeks, the Celtics have been 6th in defensive rating. 6th. So it's not like that defense has been bad, but once Rob's back, it's going to take a leap.
Yeah. And I mean, so to be clear, this is all news that came out from a Boston Globe article, and I'm only referencing it now because it hits upon something that you talked about when it comes to the Celtics offense. And this was something I didn't know until I saw this piece pop up the other day. So this is from the Globe's Adam Himmelsbach. So this is just a little excerpt here. Williams reached the 8-week mark last Thursday, and on Sunday, Coach Joe Mazzulla said Williams is doing 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 workouts with members of the coaching staff. When Williams does come back, Mazzulla said he does not think Boston's scorching start will be disturbed. I think we started off the season building our system on both ends of the floor with the full team in mind, Mazzulla said. So it'll be a seamless transition because everything we're doing, he has the ability to fit right in and help on both ends of the floor. That gets me really, really excited because, again, like Mazzulla said, they've been starting from the beginning, planning with him being back and being in that rotation. So I'm interested to see how they're going to handle it. But mainly, I just want to know who's going to start, right? Like, I think that's kind of like the big question. Do you move Horford back to the bench so he can get a little bit more rest. I think that might be something you might want to do. The idea of Horford going against second units also kind of gets me excited because I think there could be some opportunities to exploit some of these lesser teams or teams with not as much depth at the 4 or 5, because that's a really big matchup, especially with the way that he's been shooting threes lately. But you also have to consider, does Grant Williams play better with the starters or does he play better with the bench? What are you looking for out of those guys? But it's exciting. I think it's good that Rob's almost back, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him before Christmas. I think based on everything that we've read so far, I mean, the fact that he's doing 3-on-3s right now, they're checking off a lot of boxes. I know Sherrod Blakely also had something on his Substack. You should check that out if you can. But he spoke with Rob and said, like, how close are you to returning? And Rob apparently was all smiles and laughs and said, we had a lot of boxes we needed to check off, and we've checked off all of them. So I think he's going to be back very, very soon. And that's good for the Celtics.
In terms of Horford here, I'd actually expect him to stay in that starting 5, mainly because his offensive game has changed, right? So as you're saying, Rob's return's good for the Celtics. I completely agree. I think the alterations he's made to his game actually benefit Rob playing alongside him far more this year than they did last year, offensively speaking. And that's not easy to do because those two played really well off of each other last year. But Horford is kind of committed to becoming more of a 3-point threat. He doesn't want to be, you don't want him banging down low with guys too much now, not at the age he is. You want to be able to conserve his body, knowing that the physicality is going to come later in the year once the postseason starts. And that's why we've seen Horford. And while you was talking, I pulled up some cleaning the glass numbers. Horford is shooting 56% of his shots are coming from the 3. 56%. Just for reference, it was 44% of his shots last season, 42% the season before, and it's just been a steep incline since the 15-16 season, his final year in Atlanta, where it was 23% of his offense, and it's just vertically grown. So with Horford being more of a floor spacer now, barely going in the paint, I mean, 27% of his shots are coming in the paint. He's on the perimeter now. It just opens up more for Rob on the dunk spot, for Rob as the roll man, knowing that Horford's either in the corner where 25% of his threes are coming from, or around the perimeter where the other 31% are coming from. So that kind of makes a lot more sense for me. Now, obviously, Grant Williams gives you the same thing. Grant Williams is your perimeter scoring forward, but he's trying to build up his repertoire off the dribble. He's hitting more floaters this year. He's trying to run into post-ups and then back guys down. And you want him to keep developing that game because long-term, that's going to be far more important with having him as a diversified offensive threat. So keeping him on the bench for the season makes more sense because there'll be more like an increased scope for him to continue building out that offensive repertoire. So I'd personally kind of fight for Horford to stay in the starting 5 this year. And then next season, you can start looking at making that transition to switching Grant into the starting 5. But Horford's developments, along with what Rob's going to bring, hopefully, it's hard to expect Rob to have improved any areas of his game because he's been rehabbing, right? But I'd like to see him kind of really lean into that mid-range shot. If anybody listened to me over on a Celtics pod for Celtics blog for the last 2 years, you'll know that I've been huge on Rob taking those middies long before it became a popular discussion. I just want to put that out there. Long before. but that short roll in that mid-range game, and I've got the receipts too. I can find you the episodes, but you can do your own research. I don't really want to have to do that for you. But I think that having Rob as your roll guy, your short roll guy, your pull-up mid-range guy, and then Horford as your kick-out dude, that's the perfect tandem. That's why so many teams want stretch 4s, and Horford is slowly altering his game to be the perfect version of a stretch 4.
Yeah, and I think what he's doing for the spacing has been insane. And he's shooting not even just like a high volume of threes, but he's shooting them well. Like he's hitting a lot of them. So the fact is, he's able to give you a lot of spacing. And Grant gives you that too. But I think overall, the pairing of Horford and Rob is really, really good, especially when it comes down to how they defend. And I think that's the big thing because Rob's going to slide back, hopefully, into like that roamer role where he just absolutely dominated for the Celtics. I'm mainly excited to see what he's going to do for them on the offensive boards because I think that's a spot where they could always improve on. I don't think there's such thing as too much rebounding, especially for this team. But I mean, Rob used to get like those kind of like tip passes and stuff like that, where you'd have a ball, he just whack it right out over to the perimeter. And if he's going to be the one attacking the offensive glass, and then you've got Al Horford waiting on the perimeter, you've got so much more room to operate. And I'm interested to see how it affects the offense, because I think obviously Horford's been their best big man so far, right? And then you're adding Rob to that situation. So having your two best big men on the floor at the same time, based on the tandem that they had last year and the chemistry of that overall group, I'm really interested to see what they can do defensively together. And I mean, like you said, over the past week or so, they've been sixth best defense. Like, they're starting to figure things out. And I think adding in Rob can only help that. There might be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think Joe Mazzulla's comments in this article from Himmelsbach really, really reiterate the idea that they've been planning to have Rob here. They've been scheming for it. So that gives me a little bit of hope and optimism about how that's going to go for that transition. But I think the big thing is, if Rob couldn't get physically better, because he's obviously in the healing process, surgery and all that stuff, I'm hoping that he's just been watching a lot of film and figuring out like little nuances to his game of like, hey, I need to be able to read this situation better, or hey, maybe I shouldn't get as airborne, because we've seen him make these gradual tweaks to his game over the past 2 years specifically. And I'm interested to see if he's been doing a lot of film work. And I think that's the thing. They've been keeping him around. He's been around the team. Now he's starting to practice in rehab and all that stuff. But I want to see what he's done for film work, because I think there's a really great opportunity for him to further improve his already awesome game.
I don't know how much more I can add there, so I'm going to add an anecdote that's going to fall on deaf ears for anyone under the age of 30. Okay. So I'm going to call Rob for today's episode Rob LL Cool J Williams, because he's in the house. Did you ever watch LL Cool J's In the House?
No, but I know what you're referencing.
Yeah, so Rob LL Cool J Williams. I'm going to end that discussion there, because you've said it all, right? Like, he is going to improve them. He is going to be able to improve the rebounding with the volleyball type rebounds that I like. I like to call it volleyball basketball. We're just going to bat it away, and hopefully somebody's going to grab it and bat it back towards us so we can spike it down their throats on a dunk. So we're going to go for that volleyball basketball. As you said, the screening is going to improve. The defense is going to improve. We're just kind of going over the same things if we keep this conversation going. So the next thing I kind of want to hit on, to save people's ears listening to the same things being said 10 different ways, is I want to talk about some Marcus Smart, right? Marcus Smart's he's not on the injury report for today's game. So anyone that was watching this on Monday, November 21st, we're recording this at around about 8:50 a.m. Boston time, which is around about 1:50 p.m. UK time. Because if you're new here, yes, I am not American. And no, I am not Australian, contrary to a million people asking me. Even when I'm in the States, dude, like, no matter where if I'm in America, no matter where I am, people think I'm Australian.
I don't get that.
I don't get it.
I've met people from Australia and New Zealand.
The same.
No, you don't.
Maybe it's the microphone. Maybe it just gives me that rich down under vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different accent. It's a different accent, though.
Yeah, it's the same language, different accent.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And in my country, like, I can. I'm not going to get eaten by the wildlife. Touch wood.
Hopefully not.
I hope not. We don't have bears. We don't have bears in Australia either. Don't have snakes, really. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Marcus Smart should be returning to the lineup in this game. I do want to kind of give a shout out to Derek White. He's kind of my performer of the last week, right? No Malcolm Brogdon for a stretch, no Marcus Smart for a stretch. Derek White steps up, plays a couple of huge games, shows his value as a connector, shows his value as a lead ball handler, decision maker, floor spacer, catch and shoot threat. We can go on point of attack defender, charge taker. And there were people that didn't like the Derek White trade. I want y'all to put your hands up and say sorry, because obviously you were wrong. And that's okay. We're all wrong sometimes. I've said a lot of stuff about basketball that I'm wrong about, and I hold my hands up. You'll learn this as we go on with the show. But Marcus Smart's coming back. I think that's going to be huge. I know that the Chicago Bulls are kind of like that team for Boston that they tend to either do really well against, or Chicago turn up the intensity and Boston kind of crumble. And if there was ever a team that I thought would be the one to snap the losing streak, just because of how they play against Boston, like the way they approach the games. Chicago's that team, right? So Smart being back, the additional defense, the additional playmaking. Just before he missed a game or two with an injury, Marcus Smart was just playing like, I don't know, like Rondo had come and done a Monstars thing, put his powers into a ball. Marcus Smart absorbed that. Then he went to Ray Allen. He just basically became the big three in himself for like only for a small stretch, right? But Smart was at like close to triple double stats every night, but without the Russell Westbrook, I need the ball in my hands 24/7 to get it done type of mentality. No shade on Russell Westbrook. He's balling out off the bench in Los Angeles. Good for you, man. But yeah, I think Smart coming back is the perfect time because Chicago are just one of those teams that Boston really struggles against when they turn their intensity up.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see Chicago has these issues with injuries, and I know that like the Celtics of all teams would know about being bitten by the injury bug. And so far this season, they've dealt with it quite a bit. I mean, if you want to go far as back to Rob having another surgery or Gallinari's injury, as well as Brogdon having right hamstring tightness, him missing some games early on. Marcus Smart's had that right ankle inflammation. Now he's coming back. So this is the most healthy we've seen them in a little bit outside of Rob and Gallo, which are expected absences. This is the cleanest bill of health we've had for the Celtics in a little bit. So Chicago, in terms of what I would watch out for, obviously the big one's got to be DeMar DeRozan. I think, honestly, he might be their best all-around player right now. Zach LaVine's always a threat, but I don't know if – is Zach LaVine playing? Like, is he going to be playing?
Looking at it now. So LaVine is not on the injury report. In fact, the only starter on the injury report is the guy that's been on the injury report for like 55 years, and that's Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, and that's a given one. And I think that's the thing that probably has hurt the Bulls the most because they started out like relatively good, but since then they've been kind of like up and down. I mean,
they've got the end of last season.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. But like Lonzo Ball, it goes back to not having Lonzo Ball. I think Lonzo Ball being out just has killed that team. Like he was a defensive stalwart. He's a great passer. I mean, he was the guy that we had pegged for the Celtics to try and chase in free agency. And obviously that didn't end up coming to fruition. And it might have been a dodged bullet at this point because he can't stay healthy. And that's, again, availability is really important in this league. But for the Bulls right now, that's got to be like the biggest thing on their mind because you already have LaVine, who they've had to manage his knee issues with. Now Lonzo Ball hasn't played at all. You have all of these kind of issues that spark up, and they've been really inconsistent this season. You've got people talking about them saying, hey, maybe it's time we blow it up. They might be a few games away from blowing it up to try and get Victor Wembanyama, or maybe is it Scoot Henderson is one of the other top picks.
Henderson, top two, man. And Scoot can ball, dude. Like, don't think just because Wembanyama's like the unequivocal number one that Scoot can't ball. I've
heard he's good.
I heard he's very, very good, like generational good.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you're going to tank it, throw it away, like this would be the time. But the Bulls have been this like in between team for a while now. And it seemed like getting Vucevic was like they thought was going to be the piece that was going to put them over the top. I'm going to go on record saying like I thought that was a bad deal to begin with. I think giving up on Wendell Carter Jr. was a mistake. Like they had some pieces there and they shouldn't have rushed this process. And now that they have, they're going to potentially be, I don't know, maybe if they lose a couple more games, they're going to be looking at a blow up, but I don't know. I think it's tough.
One of the things for me is Vooch was a bad pickup for them, but Vooch is also a huge difference maker against a team like Boston. And I think that when Vooch is kind of operating as a low post playmaker, and you're hitting him with the post entry passes, then you're running split actions off of those passes to get Vooch into a playmaking role, get handoffs. Maybe you play him on the high post, then he can stretch the floor. He's a good screener and he's a ridiculously good rebounder. I think that he's the guy that kind of puts the Celtics into like an uncomfortable position. You can contain DeMar. You run him off the 3-point line, you dig as he gets into the mid-range, you rush that pull-up, force him to try and beat you off the dribble down by the rim when you're sending one or two at him on rotation. Zach LaVine, again, is somebody that's really hard to contain. Put them two together, they're tough, but like you said, without Lonzo Ball, there's no connector there, there's nobody teeing these guys up. You're asking them to be more self-reliant, self-create, and then that's where Vucevic comes into play to get a little bit of creation off of that. So I think dealing with Vooch is always a big issue. But what I will say is I do agree. I don't think that the Bulls constructed a roster that was championship worthy. I think they definitely went from being like one of the worst teams in the East to one of the better teams in the East. And when Lonzo's there, they're definitely one of the better teams in the East when he's healthy. But the biggest issue with them last season, even when they were going on their runs and they were like, one of the more competitive teams in the conference, they were only deep 1 through 6. 7, 8, and 9 was a real question mark for them. And that was always going to be a problem once the postseason rolled around anyway. They didn't really do anything to address that this offseason. And everyone got a year older. Lonzo's still injured. There's teams that are going to be circling Zach. They're going to be circling DeRozan for potential trades because they can see that the Bulls are kind of licking their wounds at the moment. But that's the type of game that they'll come out and they'll want to send a message. Billy Donovan will want to send a message because he's coming under a lot of fire for his, how should we put it, bland playbook. Like, there's no flavor in there. It's proper like as TikTok would call it, it's like white people chicken. There's just no seasoning to
it. It's
like
water and salt.
Which I take issue with because I season the hell out of my stuff but that's not the point, right? Like it's just bland. There's no seasoning to it. It's very much a high pick and roll, 5-out offense with very few options that they run. So Donovan's going to be fired up for this game. The Bulls. This is a statement game coming up against the Eastern Conference champions. You've beat them once already this season. You've had a tough stretch. Now we're going to come back. We're going to punch Boston in the mouth early. We're going to turn up the intensity. We know how to beat this team. We did it last season. We've done it this season. This might be the one where they think they can send a message. So I do see this as a little bit of a trap game.
For sure. I mean, I don't think they're a team that's going to by any means roll over, especially with DeMar DeRozan. I mean, between him and Vucevic hitting some late threes in that last game, like that was a really tough closeout because DeMar DeRozan, I think he had pretty much like 98% of the Bulls free throws that game. And it was a disgusting amount. Jason Tatum obviously was leading the way for the Celtics in that regard, but I think it's big that they've got Marcus Smart back. I think having him, again, you've got like multiple guards that you can throw out there in the combinations that they've got. And the idea that you've got your main playmaker back, again, is huge. And that's kind of where we went on with that conversation, I think, with the Bulls in terms of not having Lonzo Ball, how important it is to have the guard depth that the Celtics have. Like, I think that's looping back into that Brogdon conversation. Having those guards that you can lean upon in this rotation, it's done wonders for the Celtics, and it makes it possible to survive these stretches where you don't have all of your guys. It's the same reason why they haven't moved on from Peyton Pritchard, because whenever they need to have that break glass in case of emergency spot with their guards, they're able to go ahead and throw him in there, and it's kind of a stopgap. So
it's a beautiful sign.
Yeah. I mean,
beautiful.
Right? It's
depth.
Beautiful.
Depth. More depth. Jokes aside. That's about it for today, though, unless you've got anything else you wanted to talk on.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so if you've enjoyed this show, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you comment. I like the comments. I get back to as many of them as I can. If you just put a fire emoji, I'll just click the like button. If you don't give me anything to comment on, I'm not going to comment. If you do give me something to comment on, I'm going to reply. Follow us on socials. You can see that across on the screen. I'm mainly active on Twitter and Instagram, more Instagram lately because of everything that's going on with Twitter. Tim's active everywhere. And if you do want to kind of just subscribe to the podcast feed just to show love, that's cool. Just search Vitamin C's on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Apple might be a day or two until it's fully ready, but I did publish it yesterday, so I'm not sure how long it takes for them to do their magic in the background. We'll be back later in the week. Now we're back on this thing. Now we're back on our full-time grind. Again, please subscribe. We're so close to hitting that 1,000 mark. I feel like I'm begging. When I'm at 1,000, I'll be begging again because I want to get to 2,000. You know how these go. Please show some love. We really appreciate y'all. Everyone that takes the time to tune in and watch, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the whole episode, whether you break it into chunks. You taking time out your day to listen to what we need to say or what we have to say, and that means a lot.
Yeah, we appreciate it, seriously. And for everyone who's been kind of watching us from the jump, we appreciate it. This is something we've wanted to do for a while, to be able to put this much time into it. And the more of a following we get, the more possible it is for us to put more and more time into this and put out the best possible product for you guys. So, thank you.
Peace.